This episode of Title Pendering is dedicated to the late Ben Hurst. While we've been overly negative about the show up to and including this episode, Ben was still very dedicated, and as we'll go into with this episode, he was very passionate about that show, and even if we didn't much care for it, Godspeed, honestly. Rest in peace, man. Welcome to the Title Pendering Podcast, the Sonic Comic Recap Podcast that's Mondo Supremo. I'm Camilla the Void, and I'm joined by my lovely partners, Vespa the Hornet and Albie the Dragon.
Hello.
What? There's no way to treat your co-host. You know, Albie, they've always been here, the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about.
What the fuck does Albie sound like? I gotta know.
I can't do an impression. It's just a New Zealand accent.
Okay, yeah, I can't do a New Zealand accent either, damn it.
If you know, you know. But anyway, we're talking about SatAM again, covering Season 2, and just putting it up at the top. We hated this season. We thought it was worse than Season 1.
I don't know why I believe that this season was... I knew about the Antoine shorts, I knew about Dulcie, but I didn't realize this was going to be such a painful set. Especially
let's get into that a bit. Let's get into what's changed between seasons, you know? First things first, all of the writers got fired, except for Pat and Ben. And it shows, because characters are super flanderized. It's really annoying. Like, Antoine's even more of a coward, even more womanizing. Sonic is even more impatient to the point where he regularly gets into fights with Sally. He gets into fights with Knothole. It's just... it's so annoying.
Yeah, you say that, the change is noticeable, and I sort of get that, but at the same time, I don't feel like, really, besides Ben and Pat, none of the writers really stuck out from one another. On the one hand, I think it sucks that we lost all the writers except for 2, but on the other hand, I don't think much would have changed because of what the network mandated, because not only did they lose much of their writers, they were also requested 2 things in particular. One, that they introduce a brand new character to appeal to the female demographic, which led to the creation of Dulcie, who we'll get into in a minute.
Who's voiced by Cree Summer, continuing the trend that half these characters are from Rugrats.
Or they would be in Rugrats. I think Rugrats... Did Rugrats come out after this? Or was it...
let me see. Rugrats came out in 91, so
oh my god. Oh wow, I forgot how old Rugrats is, but yeah, Dulcie was added for the female demographic for some reason. I don't know why they felt this character would appeal to, but we'll get to that. The other being that they requested 2 episodes with 2 11-minute shorts focusing on everyone's favorite cowardly Frenchman, Antoine. Holy shit, Antoine this season. I had seen a few clips from this season, but I did not anticipate him being this dreadful. Holy shit,
Also, if Vespa sounds different, it's because it's late at night, and we honestly just wanted to get this out of the way so we can keep reading the comics. No tier list for this, because most of the characters were either annoying or boring, and so it would just be very depressing. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, Antoine, as Kami mentioned, is a lot more cowardly. The womanizer stuff comes to be more, and he is just downright useless, to a point where, it feels like he's even more of a danger to the Freedom Fighters than he is the villains. I know I said in the last season, he was a detriment to the team, but he's even worse this season. I feel bad for getting on Gallagher last episode about how he was betraying Antoine. At least he didn't have Antoine willing to sacrifice the Freedom Fighters to save his own ass, because that's what he does in an early episode this season. Fucking coward. I hate I hate the French stereotype stuff so much, and I love Rob Paulson. I think he's an incredible voice actor, but really? Like, Rob, like, you didn't think that this was one of your worst roles? Like, just Coconut Fred and Bubsy? Like, not Antoine?
I forgot that he did Bubsy.
Yeah, he at least did him in... I know he at least did him in the pilot.
Yeah,
I think he was also in the second game. But yeah, like... He, like, just dreadful. Like, he does not shut up.
Yeah, like his character trait where he just gets the grammar of things all wrong is just way worse. And because like, he puts like ing to a lot of things that don't normally have the word ing as a suffix. But then like sometimes like another running joke is that he'll just use the wrong word, like sound like a homonym or something that just sounds similar. And many times it has to do with food, because I noticed that one thing that keeps popping up in this batch of episodes is that for some reason food keeps getting mentioned way more. Like, oh my god, Sonic will not shut up about chili dogs now. It is just so annoying.
There's straight up an episode where he like gets distracted on a mission and goes to a chili dog vending machine that's in Robotropolis because... And like, it's not like... It's like in the sewers or something. Like, it's like in an underground area. And also, the majority of Robotropolis are robots who... I mean, like, we do see Uncle Chuck eat a chili dog later, but why would Robotnik care about what his robots eat?
Yeah,
why
it's
is there
another
a chili dog vending machine?
How is Uncle Chuck the robot able to eat a chili dog? I don't understand.
Yeah, like, we'll get into Chuck in just a bit, but like we need to also get into the ever changes, like with Dulcie, the girl Peel character.
The girl, who, might I add, is just absolutely terrifying to look at, because she is,
so
like,
ugly.
Imagine, like, the dragons from Dragon Tales, but then give them human lips on top of that, and I just do not understand. I do not understand why they thought that looked good, or would even appeal to girls.
Yeah.
And also, she's just annoying, because she's just constantly falling over herself, and then every time she falls over herself, she just says... in a dazed state something as if she's talking to her mother, and it is really annoying. She provides so much more slapstick than I ever wanted when Antoine was already the slapstick character of the group.
Yeah. I don't get it either. Like, at least after a point they sort of toned down the crash landing bit, but like... she doesn't really have much else going for her. Like, she kind of just usurps Bunny's role of being the teen muscle, so Bunny gets even less to do this season.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that, like, within the runtime of Season 2, it is basically just the Sonic and Sally show featuring Antoine and Dulcie as comedic relief for slapstick purposes, and it was just so... unendurably boring because of that.
Like, Sonic is even more annoying and chili dog obsessed because, like, his whole character's either chili dogs or, like, cracking lame jokes and shitty nicknames. Like,
or just being super impatient.
Yeah, and just saying loads of nonsense 90s slang that never get
Mondo and no problemo and... way past cool, basically. He's basically the stereotype that you expect, like, as a non-Sonic fan going into, like, what you expect of Sonic. He is that stereotype at this point.
Pretty much, yeah. And as we mentioned, the main freedom fires that we didn't mention are basically non-existent for 90% of this season.
Though in some cases, I think it's a good thing, because they redesigned Rotor, and it was absolutely terrifying. It catches me off guard all the time, because he just looks like he walked off the set of Care Bears, and I just, like...
Yeah, apparently, like, I looked into it to try to find anything, and the most I could find was that Ben mentioned in a chat with fans that Len Jansen, the producer of the show, wanted to change Rotor's design for whatever reason at one point. Like, Ben mentioned that he wasn't like a temperamental guy, but very firm on his changes, but he doesn't really explain why Rotor needed to be changed.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of these notes from Ben from both Sonic Retro and Saturday Morning Sonic.com. It's basically just the same information because this was taken from a probably now dead Sonic fan forum, and so it's the same information either way, but I think both sites are really good resources for if you wanted to learn more about SatAM yourself.
Also, since we brought him up earlier, Uncle Chuck's been sort of de-roboticized in the sense that he no longer has Robotnik's control. Robotnik no longer controls Uncle Chuck, but he's still robotic. We also learn when he's briefly completely de-roboticized that he was completely sentient underneath that metal exterior and
that's horrifying.
And it's like played in such a weird way because like he's so casual about it. Like you get like the like sentimental music playing as he talks about like how he was basically trapped inside the brainwashing of Robotnik, and I was just kind of at a loss for words in that moment. Like I feel a little mixed on how Chuck was handled. Because on the one hand, I think this is better than how he was just so casually like freed from Robotnik's control in the comics. But on the other hand, he kind of just feels like a plot device afterwards. Like we don't really get that much like character-focused stuff.
To give some more context real quick, is that during the course of Season 2... specifically within episode 2 of season 2, or episode 1, because the first 2 episodes aired out of production order, Uncle Chuck, like in the comics, ends up getting his sentience back, and he goes back and forth between trying to maintain that sentience, but gets snapped out and goes back to being sentient again by means of having a montage of the events of that episode playing out to him. And so it's like an interesting thing of, again, why I thought it was cool that we're going back and forth between comic and SatAM, is that, like, you can see plot elements between both of these going back and forth. Like, stuff happens in one set of episodes that then happens in the comic, and I just thought that was pretty neat, being able to compare the two of them. Like, we probably should have watched SatAM, like, at the very beginning, or, like, after the first set of issues, but it's still pretty cool to be able to contextualize the overarching storylines.
And there's also one more change we should bring up is Snively, who has gone from being sniveling, wimpy, like secondhand, to being a lot more antagonistic about his role as Robotnik's henchman and constantly not cursing him, but like making fun of him under his breath.
Yeah, it's one thing we touched upon in the previous set of episodes was that at one point Snively just out of nowhere decides to just snap on Robotnik and be like, I'm done with your shit. And I just thought that was so out of place. But then we go over here to SatAM Season 2, where that's just his entire character for the entire show. Like, he is just absolutely done with Robotnik and is just constantly grumbling under his breath. Like, he's just like a minimum wage worker for Robotnik. Just weird given things we learn, too. Later on, we'll cover about it, though.
I mean, I get it. Like, Robotnik's a piece of shit that treats Snively like crap, despite Snively doing pretty much most of the work. Like, I'd say he's more of a threat than Robotnik is more than half the time.
Yeah, but that's what I liked about how Penders wrote Snively specifically, was that Snively was more just a guy who doesn't really have a sense of direction. He wants to just be, like, that's his point, is that he, like, serves Robotnik because he doesn't know what to do with himself otherwise. And I liked the rapport he had with Robotnik, whereas, like, Robotnik is still, like, a controlling ass to Snively. But Snively's just like, yeah, you're like that. That's cool. Like, you know, like, he literally calls him a big doof when he comes back from being sent to a parallel dimension.
Right.
God, this storyline is fucked, dude.
It's gonna get more fucked, I'm sure. But yeah, I suppose like one last thing to bring up about like changes is towards the end of the season, Sonic ends up influencing Nicole to give her some personality, which kind of just amounts to a robot talking radical slang because he was getting fed up with her robot talk.
Yeah, because the whole point was that Sally was separated from the group in that episode, and it was just Sonic and Nicole, and so Nicole is just speaking in their more generic, like, robot speak, and Sonic is just getting so fed up with her to the point where he's, like, threatening to shake her because apparently Nicole is so poorly built that shaking her would possibly damage the internals. And then so now Nicole is just speaking in layman's terms and is also fed up with Sonic's bullshit, which I thought was pretty funny. But then she just starts speaking like way radical, way past cool afterwards as well. And that bleeds into the other episodes because that's the thing that we're probably going to move into in just a second is there is actually overarching episodes and continuity this time, unlike for the most part season 1. So here's where the episodic stuff is. It's in the bad season.
Yeah, it's not really the most interesting stuff either. Like, there's a few overarching points, like Sonic and...
We can get into it in a bit, but
alright.
We can just complain about general stuff a bit more than more general stuff we didn't like. The animation just seemed like it was worse at points. Like, honestly, like, sometimes characters will just have eyes going off in 2 different directions, like, completely unintentionally. There was, like, some moments where they were just, like, weird transitions from like, scene to scene. And I think at one point, it just looked like there was, like, a full-on, like, Star Wars wipe, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Was it season 1 or season 2 that had the point where, like, like a chunk of Antoine's face was, like, falling off for a second there?
I think that was season 1, yeah. It is...
Fair.
We watched, like, season 1 basically across 2 back-to-back days, I think. But then with season 2, we had a break between the first half and the second half. And so, because it is just... I just did not care for how slow and plotting the story was. I just am already forgetting what happened in season 1 and what happened in season 2. It was just a lot of, weird fantasy bullshit that's just going on. Like, we already have that with, like, the evil wizard in season 1, but then we have Dulcie, who introduces the concept of dragons into the story, and then how there's, like, I don't even understand what's going on with dragons. I will fully admit that it was not me paying full attention to what was going on, but there's just, like, a lot of, like, it honestly kind of reminds me of, like, what happened with Knuckles, how it's, like, sort of like a last in the race kind of thing. Like, the dragons seem to be, like, either dying out or being roboticized, because there's an episode where Dulcie gets full focus, and the episode is just titled Dulcie, because we're not having, like, blank Sonic episode titles anymore.
Thank God.
But, like, Dulcie gets her own episode, and it's just titled Dulcie. She ends up basically... It felt like a weird puberty metaphor, where it's like she's just going through, like, weird changes. It was really more that she's just, like, sometimes just zoning out and just having, like, trances where she's meant to go to, like, the dragon layer of migration. You can tell I'm on a Sonic fandom wiki, trying to Sonic News Network wiki, trying to remind myself of the exacts. But it's a weird episode where they go to, like, a migratory nest and find out that a new dragon egg is there and is being, like, nursed. And yeah, I don't really get it. It's just really weird, and also the newborn dragon is just absolutely terrifying to look at. It was nightmarish.
It was like it's also the episode where Dulcie klutziness gets toned down at least, but, like, it's not a very terribly interesting episode. Dulcie just isn't an interesting character to follow. When she's not being klutzy, she's just kind of like a smartass, I guess. Like, she's kind of snarky.
And then we also have Ixis Nagus, the evil sorcerer, who was basically retconned into having also been sent into the Void, as it's called in this. It's the Zone of Silence in the Archie comics, but in here it's just the Void.
Yeah. He's something.
Yeah. there's not really much to say. He is just like an evil sorcerer that Robotnik 2-timed, and I think he was talking about how he was the one who discovered the void in this continuity or something like that. And or at least he has the ability to like go into the void or summon the void, but he can't get out on his own. He has to have sonic speed to be able to get out.
Yeah. He's just a weird character to me, given like it's more magic BS stuff, and he's also... The other issue I have with him is that he undermines what little threat that Robotnik had, because Robotnik, I guess, was serving under him, and whenever Naugus is around, he makes an utter fool out of Robotnik by transmorphing his head into different animals to mock him.
Yeah, I had a bird head. It was pretty funny.
It's just embarrassing to watch Robotnik, who, like, supposed to be this menacing, cruel, evil dictator, just be made into a total fool, basically adventures Robotnik, but without any of the charm or even the menace. Like, even... like, as goofy and campy as that Robotnik is, he still feels more threatening and even creepier than this moaning, groaning god. There's a lot of moans this season, especially from Robotnik and Snively.
For some reason, Robotnik and Snively are just constantly, like, panting or, like, moaning as their plans are about to come to fruition, and it was just really confusing. I think that is a good transitionary point, because we don't really have much to say, unfortunately, but, I think a good transitionary point into us rambling about, like, what little overarching plot there is, because there was some moments in which Robotnik was, like, actually trying to pose a threat, and I thought actually kind of worked, because we had in the episode 1 or episode 2 in terms of air date, we had Ari, was it a lamb or a goat? I don't remember.
Like a ram.
He ends up basically tricking Sonic into going into a trap because, if you do this, then I'll spare your family, your freedom fighters. I don't remember the specifics again.
Yeah, the freedom fighters that he was working with.
And then it's revealed that they just actually get roboticized. They were, like, off-screen beforehand. And I thought that was a neat little touch of, like, why would you trust Robotnik? You know, he's just gonna roboticize people. And so it's like, that's the one time in which Robotnik does actually just roboticize someone in this continuity. And it's just like a more passing thing for a character that does not matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I didn't really care for Ari or that whole plotline. I was just wondering, like, dude... It's Robotnik. You should know that at this point that there's no chance that, like, he's gonna be true to his word. Like, he got himself into that mess. Like, they try to make it like this tragic thing at the end. He sacrificed himself to save Sonic from the void.
Yeah, because he feels bad about it and goes in to try and save Sonic from the pinball dimension, the pinball hell that Robotnik has made for him, because again we're just having like a weird overlap between the comics and the TV show.
To be fair, they did do also a pinball thing in Adventure, so I think it's just like because pinball is just a reoccurring thing in classic Sonic.
Yeah, but then like Robotnik's like screw this and just opens like a vacuum to the void, and then Ari ends up falling into the void, and I was like, did a man just die episode 1? I was just like, what the fuck?
Fucking rip loser.
Holy shit.
He's not dead. They save him from the void later anyway.
Yeah, but like at that point, we don't know that you can even save people from the void.
Yeah, but...
because like that doesn't happen until like episode... where is... episode 20... not the... well, 21 total, but episode 8 in season 2. Yeah, but it's like at that point, it's like... Wait, what?
I told you, like, I think he was a dumbass for trusting Robotnik.
I get that, but it's like, holy shit, yeah, fuck him. Eat shit, asshole. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, he deserved it. Like, he was gonna, like...
Oh my god!
Yeah!
We're freedom fighters here! That's the part of the plot we're doing now. We're freedom fighters here. And you're just gonna sell out one of your guys?
Hey, he was selling out,
you're Robotnik! You're no worse than Robotnik!
He was selling out Sonic and Friends. Like, he's a fucking asshole. I'll get into it later if you... Like, at the end of the episode, like, as he's falling into the void, he tells Sonic about the list of other freedom fighters, which we eventually get to, because, going back to the Antoine short thing, there was going to be 2 other episodes focusing on the other freedom fighters that we didn't get, thanks to some executives from ABC. God, I love executive meddling so much.
I'll be sure to rat you out when we have our evaluation hearings at the Freedom Fighters headquarters. But then we have an episode where, like, episode 2, is not part of the overarching plot, but it kind of is. But yeah, like, we do have a de-roboticizer actually get invented, and it's like, wait, what? You're gonna just de-roboticize Bunny and Chuck, but then it's revealed to be only temporary, and it's like, what?
Match. I kind of expected really that.
Like, I it comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, you're just de-roboticizing them now. So then it's like, yeah, it makes sense that it's only temporary. But then it's like, within the context of the narrative, yeah, it makes sense to be temporary. But within the context of in-universe, why would it be temporary? That doesn't make sense.
I guess because, like, I don't know, like, I think it was like they didn't have a strong enough power source or something.
Yeah. But then, like, oh yeah, also, like, yeah, because that was, like, the thing, was that Sonic was, like, rushing in to get Uncle Chuck to de-roboticize him, and Sally's like, no, don't do that yet, we haven't figured things out yet. And then, like, at the end, Sonic is roboticized. No, that would make it way more interesting. Sonic apologizes for, like, rushing into things, which is wild given how much he actively rushes into things and actively ignores Sally, and then actively complains about having to think or be patient. I was just sitting here like, why are you apologizing? You made a net positive because you have, like, an N. Because, again, Uncle Chuck now has a sapience again.
He's now Sonic a spy. Just let Sonic feel guilt, please. Sega won't ever let him frown. This boy needs to feel some negative emotions once in a while.
We'll get into that way later. But another episode I wanted to briefly mention, but it's not actually part of the overarching plot, was there was one episode in which Sonic... It's the episode where Sonic gets a chili dog from the chili dog vending machine. He ends up getting hit by a memory scrambler and ends up sending Snively, who's on his own because Robotnik is, like, on vacation or something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And ends up taking him to Knothole, and I was like, wait, this is also just something they would do in the comics, and I was just like, has Ken just been, like, vaguing the writers of SatAM than just writing plots better? I did not understand why. Like, it's just tropes. It is just like Sonic gets brainwashed and leads the villains to the base. Like, I don't actually think Ken, like, is plagiarizing here.
Right, it's just like a general plot beat for this kind of story.
But it was just funny to me how there was just, like, a weird overlap. And speaking of overlaps, that does take us into the next episodes I wanted to point out. We get a 2-parter in which they're on a mission and they fail, they screw up, and they're like, man, I wish we could just go back in time and stop Robotnik from having taken over Mobotropolis. And they're like, we can do that. And so they end up going to the floating island in this story, which is nothing to do with Echidnas, and end up finding the time stones to go back in time.
Yep. To save the horse and the bear. Like, it's not even like these are, like, that anthropomorphized. Like, it just looks like an upright walking horse and an upright walking bear that got captured. And it just kind of gets forgotten about after they go back to the past.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the mission they failed on. I was like, what are you talking about? I knew I forgot a lot of things that went on during the season, but I was like, I don't remember them going back in time for a horse and a bear. They went back in time to stop Robotnik usurping Mobotropolis. I know what you mean, but
yeah, like with the initiating.
I was just confused. And so yeah, we'd end up going back in time. We learned in this continuity, Robotnik's first name is Julian, and also that Snively is his nephew, which then just makes it even more confusing as to why Snively is just so snot-nosed towards his uncle, I guess. I don't know. We also get to meet, what's his name? King Acorn, who is voiced by Tim Curry.
Yeah.
And so we do end up getting Jim Cummings rivaling Tim Curry. And I'm like, man, this would be way cooler and a way better cartoon to have the two of them against each other. Like, holy shit.
Or at least just have Tim Curry playing something more interesting than King Acorn.
Who isn't a horseman of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
We also get, Rosie, the nanny of Sally, who also appears in, like, the first Sally set of stories, because she's the one who ends up telling Sally about Julayla's passing. And I was like, what the hell? That's so weird. It just caught me, like, way off guard.
I forgot which was which.
Well, I always remembered which one was Julayla, but I just could not remember Rosie's name. I had to look it up just now. And so, yeah, they end up going back in time and basically have a lot of, like, almost Back to the Futurian shenanigans, where it's basically, like, all of the freedom fighters actually, like, knew each other as kids in this continuity, which I thought was really lame and really uninteresting. Do you want to add anything to that before I continue?
I've never liked this kind of trope. Like,
I hate it too.
And it's also just weird because, like, they go into, like, some of the backstory. Like, I think, like, at one point, like, the bunny, like, getting roboticized, and Sonic and Sally stop her from getting fully roboticized. So it's the kind of thing where...
Well, no.
Wait.
Because, like, you're talking about, like, how you hate the trope of, like, how, like, they go back in time and then basically retroactively cause all of the events that led up to this point, which I do hate, mind you. But Bunny doesn't even get partially roboticized. They turn it off before then, is the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't even happen there. But yeah, like, it's just an annoying trope. I always hated all of us knew each other as a kid.
Right.
Like, the childhood friends are fine, but, like, making the entire... Like, pulling a Muppet Babies. I do not want the Muppet Babification of SatAM.
Please,
like,
no.
As much as I didn't care for Season 1, I did not want the Muppet Babification of Sonic. Yeah, and then they end up having to basically deal with trying to avoid getting their past selves roboticized. But then... One thing I noticed is at one point they forgot to draw Rotor in one of the final scenes of them being taken to Knothole. And so, it wasn't intentional, but I was like, oh no, they couldn't save the day because now Rotor got roboticized.
Who's Rotor? Like, oh man, Rotor.
Boomer? You mean Boomer, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, because, like, the whole point is, like, they think, like, oh, if we change anything, then we'll cease to exist. And then Sally decides, anyway, Rosie, don't ever leave Knothole, because you'll get, like, she doesn't say why, but it's because she ends up getting roboticized, like, in, like, the past. And so Sally, in her selfishness, which, like, understandable selfishness, but still, like, given she was the one constantly nagging Sonic about it, was just annoying, ends up having Rosie become the nanny again. Well, not become the nanny, but she ends up, like, not getting roboticized.
Right.
And ends up, like, being part of Knothole, and then never shows up again. But I thought it was, like, weird.
Yeah,
I like time travel plots, but, like, it also just felt, like, completely unnecessary and just...
Yeah, it was...
confusing.
It was to basically just... I feel like it was basically to give the backstory without, like, just being a flashback. Like, I kind of felt like...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The premise... Like, I kind of was interested in the premise of it, like, in case, like, they actually did went into any sort of, like, actual consequences of time traveling. But the fact that all it amounted to was oh, we saved Rosie, who never appears again, or is never mentioned. What was the point of it? Like, other than having that kind of sting at the end, like, oh, they changed the past, even though it doesn't really matter, so, blah. Also, one last one I want to bring up about this episode was the fact that, like, at least only in this episode, they portray Robotnik's wanting to, like, ruin Robotropolis partially as, like, his love of pollution. He just loves the smell of it. Like, this is so goddamn lame. What is this Captain
At one point,
Planet
he's literally
BS?
just huffing, like, gas fumes and sniffling. And he's like, do you enjoy this beautiful scent, sniffling? And he's like, yes, my liege.
Yeah, maybe that's why Robotnik's constantly sound like he's at the edge of coming. Like, because he's just constantly getting high off the fumes of his city. Ugh, I hate this Robotnik so much, and I hate to say that. Because I love Jim Cummings
such a miscast, honestly. Like, Jim Cummings would be really good for a lot of plot lines in Archie Sonic, but, like, in SatAM, he's just completely wasted. And then, because at this point we might as well just go episode to episode, because we've already been doing that, we get the first set of Antoine episodes.
Do we have to talk about these too much?
No. But, I mean, I'll just lump the Antoine episodes together, because it's basically just Antoine finds people that finally put up with him, and then we learn that they had ulterior motives or are absolutely crazy, because in this episode, they're cannibals who eat people that they end up treating like royalty, and it's like, what is going on? I was so confused by how we just inexplicably turn into a cannibalism plot midway through the season.
Yeah, it's all stock comedy, cartoon, Saturday morning plots for these.
Yeah. And then we had another plot that's just about ghost stories, and I was just completely checked out.
Same.
I at many points just would just check my phone during these seasons. At one point, I just started playing Tiny Tim's Living in the Sunlight because I needed something to emotionally pick me up as I was feeling myself, like, shutting down. Like, I'm sorry if you ended up liking SatAM and you just are still able to stomach through 40 minutes of us pre-editing 40 minutes of us just complaining about a show you like, but, like, because neither of us grew up with this, we just completely checked out at this point. It was just unendurably boring.
I wanted to give this show a chance, because, like, even if I didn't...
Oh, me too.
If I didn't have any interest in it growing up, I at least was still curious about it to see if it was as good as people said, and, like, there were some points. Like, I still maintain that at least Sonic and Sally was a damn good episode. Like, it's what I wish the rest of the show was like. That kind of, like, character-driven writing, with the characters being much more tolerable, and just some sort of genuine, actual progress, or, like, character development going on, or, like, character writing, just something, like, these episodes just feel so repetitive.
And we also have an episode in which Rotor is making a female assistant, and it's just a Frankenstein parody, and they're absolutely terrifying.
It's more like the kind of episode where, like, some character is in love with another, and they're really annoying and creepy about it. And in this case, it's Antoine, because, like, the robot saw him first and for some reason is madly in love with him. That one dragged on the most, I felt like, because there's, like, several points where it feels like the episode's wrapping up and, like, they finally dealt with the robot, only for it to come back to Antoine and start, like, fawning over him again, and then they seem like it's wrapping up again, and then it goes back to the robot fawning over him, and it's just so maddening, because also the robot itself is like this Bride of Frankenstein cat anthro thing that sounds like, that has like a Jersey accent.
Yeah, Vespa, when we were watching, basically likened them to Fran Drescher.
Yeah, I feel like that's an insult to Fran. I love Fran Drescher.
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. Like, I grew up watching The Nanny, and I'm sure it's aged like milk, because I've heard there's a lot of, like, transphobia in The Nanny, but, like, I love that show growing up, so, like, yeah. But, I mean, we could take solace that if things didn't happen in the final episode, maybe Rebecca could have... That's the name of the robot. Rebecca could have unionized for Robotropolis.
God damn it.
Support your strikes, ladies and gentlemen. But then we get into the Dulcie episode. No, we have one more episode with Antoine in which... Huh?
I said this one was actually worse. I almost forgot about it. I probably could skip it.
I actually thought it was better just because it felt like it mirrored my emotional state. Long story short, a few houses get destroyed by Dulcie by accident, and Sonic has to live with Antoine for a day. And Antoine just finds Sonic so insufferable that he just snaps and just goes insane. And it's like, yeah... That's how I'm feeling right now, and I totally get it, dude.
I found them both insufferable, like, Sonic being just an absolute, like, slobby asshole, and Antoine just constantly freaking out. Like, never, like, just tell him to stop, or, like, get angry with him. Don't just stop freaking out.
Well, he did get angry, was the point. He got so angry he snapped.
But more than I just wish I could start throttling Sonic's neck or something. Like, I just want him to actually, like, get him to actually stop instead of just, like, panicking. Like, just do something to stop this fucking lazy idiot. I hate these shorts so much.
They're really bad. But then we get into the Dulcie episode, which we covered earlier. Not really much to say, additionally. Then we get to the episode about Naugus, in which we learn about Naugus existing, Naugus being sent into the void by Robotnik, it was basically like, you better bring me back, Robotnik, and then Robotnik goes, yeah, sure, and then just, like, left him in the void.
For years.
Which I thought was, like, conceptually pretty funny for, like, explaining a retcon, as Robotnik just double-crossed him. Was this the episode where, Knothole ends up, like, talking back to Sonic?
Yeah, because, like, he's wondering where Sally and Bunny went. Yeah,
because Sally and Bunny... Well, like, at the start, Sonic finds an artifact they're trying to figure out what it means and all that. And long story short, it was a trick by Naugus, and Naugus uses it to kidnap Sally and Bunny. And then Sonic has to find them, ends up going into the void himself. Not really much to say, other than, like, yeah, it just really continues to make Robotnik feel stupider and stupider of a villain when he has someone above even him. When he's meant to be like a menacing person.
Yeah. Also, fun fact about Naugus, he is voiced by Michael Bell, aka the voice of Chaz and Lou Pickles from Rugrats, as well as the Fear from Metal Gear Solid.
God, I man, I would love to have just the Fear, like an XP of the Fear just in Sonic, though. Like, you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 3, but when you do...
Oh, sorry, I was wrong. It was True. Pickles, not Lou.
When you do, you'll also just be like, man, this would be wild as a Sonic plot. Like, it's obviously not going to be the first thing that comes to mind, because why would it? But, like, now that I've implanted this seed into your head, I just want you to, like, imagine that whenever you do end up playing Metal Gear Solid 3.
I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead some, but, like, Whisper and her team exist, and they're inspired by Metal Gear, so I could believe that, like, we could have... Like...
We'll do a bonus episode in which I make you play Metal Gear Solid 1.
I'm down for that. That would be a bonus episode for IDW, I guess.
So anyway, back to our SatAM recap episode.
Right.
Sonic ends up using his super speed to get out of the void, which was just absolutely wild to me. How that's just something you can do, given it felt like it was like much more of a monumental task within the context of like the Archie depiction of the Zone of Silence. And so he ends up freeing King Acorn and Naugus and Ari from the first episode.
Yeah, he's there.
I was like,
too.
oh right, yeah, he did fall into the void. And then we learned that because Naugus and King Acorn have been in the void so long, their bodies end up just crystallizing and so they end up having to go back into the void. But then one thing that I'm so glad I remembered to bring up, because it made me lose my mind in the funniest ways, they wanted to have a shot where King Acorn and Naugus were right next to each other as they left to go back to the void, because, again, Naugus being like an evil sorcerer because fantasy bullshit can just open up a portal to the void. They wanted to have the two of them together, so they're like in the same shot as Naugus opens up the portal to the void, but they were in two different positions, like over like 6 to 12 feet apart from each other. And so despite the fact that Naugus's feet were crystallizing, he ends up just casually walking over to King Acorn, and his feet are perfectly fine, and then in the next shot they're crystallizing again.
Yeah, the director didn't mean to need to move the camera a bit. Like, it just was not meant to be caught walking over to King Acorn. I'm just imagining.
Yeah, like this is just all acting. Yeah,
like a show within a show. They accidentally left that in.
Well, yeah, because like we're members of Knothole, right? We were watching the TV dramatization of what happened to our great freedom fighters.
Sure, let's go with that.
And then we get into the other set of Antoine episodes, which we talked about. Then we have an episode about the wolf pack.
Oh yeah, that.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I didn't pay much attention to this, because most of the bits were just Antoine crying about a curse that was going on, which is, in fact, just a deterrent to prevent people from finding the wolf pack. The wolf pack were victims of Robotnik eradicating their culture, which I thought was weirdly heavy for a children's cartoon.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed with that episode, because I was expecting it to be more about since they were bringing back the Freedom Fighter list thing, I was expecting them to be a big part of the episode, but no, it's mostly just Antoine being a little baby, while Sonic and Sally have to put up with it. Yeah,
and they do end up finding the other Freedom Fighters that Ari mentioned in the first episode. Then we get into Droodhenge, in which we revealed even more MacGuffins, the Power Stones.
Why don't we have Chaos Emeralds?
Yeah. So, long story short is that they're these two halves of a stone, in which if you join them together one way, like a yin-yang, that you end up getting basically almost unlimited power. But if you join the two parts that look like they were ripped off together, it ends up creating a massive explosion that could potentially take out the entire planet. It's ambiguous. And then it's just a flat episode about trying to get those stones. Sonic ends up throwing a fake one into lava to freak Robotnik out, which I thought was pretty funny.
Also, Tails helped save the day.
Oh yeah, they remembered that Tails existed, because the whole plan of faking a Power Stone was from Tails.
Hey, just like in Sonic Adventure 2. Once again.
Fox Boy. Yeah, no, a weird thing to note was that, the Power Stones were something that King Acorn was gonna tell Sally about, but, only when she was coming of age, which Sally mentions is something that would not happen for another 2 years, and so it's when she turns 16? Because, I think according to the comics, she's, 14.
Right.
And I'm assuming it's, something they got from, production for Deke. And so I was happy, bat mitzvah, Sally. I don't know why you're Jewish now, but, happy bat mitzvah. Here's these two magical stones that could destroy reality as we know it.
Have fun, sweetie! Happy 16!
What a hell of a sweet 16. But no, it's more that she's told, information on where to get them, specifically, to be clear. But it's still, weird thing to tell, while she's getting her brand new car, you know? Then we get another episode in which Antoine is just absolutely insufferable. Apparently, because again, I was just mentally checked out. Apparently, Antoine saves Sally, and then just gets an inflated ego, even more so than usual about it. And meanwhile, Robotnik has realized that there's a spy amongst them. They think it's Antoine, and they proceed to try and torture him by escargots, which was like, yeah, French.
Yeah, because he was going to use margarine instead of butter. Snively, the cruel bastard. Why the hell don't you roboticize them, you moron?
Yeah, they could have just fucking roboticized him and then probed his mind, because in, like, I think it was literally the previous episode, maybe a few episodes back, No, it was a few episodes back. It was the Dulcie episode. They show that Robotnik can just probe the minds of his robots and roboticized Mobians. And even within this episode, when Robotnik and Snively realize it's Uncle Chuck that's the spy, they just try and, like, probe his mind, and, well, more specifically, they try and, like, re-control him again, and use that to get information on Knothole. And so it's like, I don't get why you didn't just roboticize Antoine. It was so annoying to me, honestly.
Because then we wouldn't have a plot, I guess.
But then, like, we get into the Doomsday Project, the season finale.
Next week, Doomsday.
Next week, Doomsday was at the end of the episode. Which is, one thing that was interesting, though, is, like, in Drudhenge and Cry of the Wolf, they did, like, mention in passing the Doomsday Project, and so that was like, I thought that was cool. How it was like they were actually gearing towards the finale. It was like actually setting up an overarching plot. You know, like overarching plot actually happens. And then it's just an underwhelming finale. Like part of Knothole gets destroyed because one of Robotnik's Doomsday UFO probes ends up blowing up part of Knothole. It was right next to Knothole, in fact, and so it's like, wait, if it's right next to there, how do you not know that Knothole is right there? It ends up destroying Rotor's lab, so goodbye, Rebecca, I guess.
He probably scrapped her at the end of the episode anyway.
we'll carry on your legacy and unionize for the robots of Robotropolis if we end up getting roboticized ourselves, I guess. They end up staging a massive plan to invade Robotropolis, involving the freedom fighters that were introduced in the previous episodes, and then they immediately get captured.
We also see the other two, presumably freedom fighter factions that would have been in the episodes that got replaced with the Antoine ones, who also get immediately captured and have no characterization.
And the Wolfpack as well.
Yeah. What was the point of this fucking arc if that was all it was going to amount to?
It was so funny, because, I'm mainly, when we were watching it together, I was mainly just complaining about how annoying everyone was, how annoying Dulcie was, Antoine was, Sonic was, and, Vespa was doing that too, but Vespa fucking snapped when they all got captured, because it's what was the point in mentioning them, bringing them up and all that, only for them to get captured?
So Sonic and Sally can save the day once again, I don't think, the other two, Dulcie and Antoine, do much anyway. And I think, Rotor at least made I was about to say fart bubbles.
The fart bubbles? It's metal eating, acid.
Stink bomb, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, they're metal eating acid that they put in, balloons. And they throw at the Doomsday stuff.
And it just looks like stink bombs to me. It looks so lame.
Sonic almost gets roboticized, uses a power ring to try and stop it, then Robotnik goes like, no, you fool, I've engineered this specifically for you.
Then power rings it away.
He gets 2 more power rings to then counteract that and then leave. And then they're like, okay, we don't know what to do. The main reactor of the Doomsday device is just, still heavily guarded. And so they use the Power Stones to power up, because it's just the power rings times 10,000, as Nicole so eloquently put it. And then we get into an interesting set of scenes in which Robotnik storms off to face Sonic and Sally himself, pushes Snively away and says the ship he's going on only has room for one. Snively complains once more. When Robotnik flies off, we see Sonic and Sally powered up by the Power Stone, like, zipping past in, like, streaks of light across the Doomsday Project. And then we just have, like, the same scenes of them zipping past, repeating over and over and over again, cutting back and forth between the scenes over and over and over again, flashes of light, and then we just intersperse that with scenes of Robotnik screaming, basically. And then the entire Doomsday machine just fades out into nothingness. And Sonic's like, yeah, we got rid of Robotnik! And it's like, wait, you were just writing out Robotnik that easily? You're just gonna kill him off in montage?
Yeah.
Like, Robotnik basically dies in montage, and it's like, what the fuck?
It looks so confusing. Like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. It's really poorly edited. It's like a really poorly edited flashback montage of Robotnik screaming about how much he hates that hedgehog.
Yeah.
It feels like a bit out of like a commercial promoting SatAM or something.
Or just like a weird-ass creepypasta, almost.
I think this episode...
Hyper-realistic motor oil dripping from the eyes of Robotnik.
I'm just thinking of, like, the Sally EXE creepypasta. I think that was the one I'm thinking of, where, like, it was inspired by the show getting canceled in this episode.
But yeah, then we have, like, the requisite awards ceremony, Sonic and Sally kiss, and then it's revealed that Snively, of course, survived and has now decided to take over himself, cackling as we see red eyes in the background. Well, I thought it was going to be Metal Sonic, which would have been cool, but no, it's
Nagus.
According to confirmation from Ben, it's Nagus again, and it's like, that's lame. That's really lame. But to be fair, they didn't expect this to be the series finale. They had a season 3 plan.
Yeah, now...
But... yeah.
It's time for me to
disappointing.
It's time for me to break out the history knowledge stuff about
the history knowledge books.
AKA
the Nicole archives. We'll figure out our ongoing plotline in a bit later on, I guess.
AKA, I looked up some stuff on Sonic Retro and Cammy helped with the SatAM Saturday morning site. But yeah.
Yeah, you are our Knothole historian, after all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of stuff that was planned for the potential season 3, Snively's going to rise to power, but was getting messages from Robotnik from the Void to get him to come out of the Void, probably because he needed help. And he ends up releasing Robotnik, Nagus, and King Acorn, with Nagus taking over as the big bad, with Robotnik being his henchman this time rather than Snively. And Snively
should have been so lame.
Yeah, just further reducing the lead villain of the games is supposed to be adapting, and Snively is reduced to nothing. So there was going to be supposedly a plan for Snively to pretend to join the Freedom Fighters, and Antoine was going to be the only one to catch on and foil that. Besides that, the Freedom Fighters would become the Freedom Builders and try to rebuild Robotropolis. Nicole, as we mentioned before, was going to be revealed to be a Mobian that was friends with Sally when they were kids, who was also a genius, which led to Robotnik wanting to use her as a super powerful AI. But Nicole manages to overpower him, wipe her and Robotnik's memory of the incident, and the last thing she does before she loses her memories is make sure she's in Sally's hand, sort of like what happened in the comics, but I will at least say I kind of prefer this backstory. I prefer this backstory over what we got in the comics. Even if it does feel kind of jarring, I think that's at least a more interesting thing for her, and would also explain why she's so sentient in the comics. But besides that, Dulcie would get more control over her powers. We didn't bring it up, but
because we didn't. She has ice powers. She inflates and sucks up air and then just breathes out ice powers, which was just Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, she also does this against Robotnik, and they do nothing about that afterwards. Get fucking smashed him, but I digress. Tails would mature, get a bit more rebellious, and come to his own as a freedom fighter. Something I wish we could have gotten this season a bit more, but love triangle BS with Sonic Stallion, some sort of new character, they do not mention who. Probably something.
I love how you wrote that down as love triangle BS barf in your notes.
Yeah, because that's what I think about that idea. It sounds fucking awful. And I'm sure it wouldn't be any good regardless, because it's a love triangle plot for a kid's cartoon in the 90s. But of course, Sonic would come out on top. Who'd have seen it? Knuckles was going to be introduced near the end of Season 3 and would have potentially become a main character in the play in Season 4. Not much else is said on Knuckles' potential
I feel like
role.
that would have at least made the show more interesting,
right,
because then you would be forced to have more characters from the games.
Right, and also just the fact that, like, if you would be anything like the comics version, well, you probably would still butt heads with Sonic and we'd get a lot of annoying rival bickery stuff. He at least would be a lot more level-headed, to an extent, like, Knuckles at least be more well-rounded than Sonic. Like, I don't think he would take over, but, like, he'd probably be more tolerable than Sonic. And, Sonic was going to develop in some way, don't really say specifically. And as we mentioned about Robotnik's backstory earlier, it was going to be revealed that Mobius was a far-flung future Earth after, like, a nuclear war had happened. Robotnik and Snively were going to be on a spaceship off of Earth, like, before the nuclear war happened, and when they come back, they find out the world has been taken over by evolved animals, and Robotnik wants to take over because he's human, these are animals. That shit ain't right. He wants to rule them.
Yeah, I just thought that was so weird how it was like, it was just animals, nuclear blast mutated into being human.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? That is just a weird way to explain Mobians. I'm not into that.
I'll say, like, if it wasn't for the fact that, like, they was attached to Sonic, I feel like it makes sense for this kind of world, I guess, but, like, there's still the weird magic BS stuff that...
Yeah.
I guess, like, I don't know, it's like some Adventure Time apocalypse world situation. Yeah. I don't know, I'm not a big...
I guess that's also relevant for time of recording, maybe not later, given how much Adventure Time stuff... Well, it's still an ongoing series, so it'll still be relevant whenever this comes out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's...
It just gets canceled, like, the next day, like, after we record. It's like, damn it.
That's love! And anyway,
that's love!
Getting back to the Season 3 thing, in regards to the cancellation, there were some theories thrown around that I saw was disinterest from the ABC's new head of children's programming at the time, being preempted by college football on the West Coast, and possibly the biggest reason was Power Rangers overtaking the ratings for SatAM. When the show was canceled, Ben, the head writer, had a lot of ideas for a potential continuation. Around August 1999, he ended up meeting old Ken Penders at a convention, and they discussed writing a comic for the Super Specials.
Which we'll get into next episode, hilariously enough, for what a Super Special is, but yeah, go on.
They're going to, he was going to write them for the Super Special as like a comic to fit into the show's continuity. But when Ben found out the payment for doing comics wasn't as much for the show, he passed on the job. He then considered later going with a movie to wrap up the show rather than a third season. He met with the producer behind Geek's Sonic cartoons to discuss the plans, then went to the Sonic Usenet forums to ask fans to mail their local TV affiliates to, more demand for SatAM to be syndicated. After the...
Yeah, and I'm going to hijack this here because I do actually want to directly quote some of what Ben Hurst has said on the forums.
Fair enough.
Long story short, I'll paraphrase a bit. He ends up talking to Deke, as Vespa said, to try and figure out what to do about getting a movie instead of a season 3, and ends up getting pointed to a Sega executive and has a pleasant conversation with her. Then gets a call from Ken Penders himself, who also heard about the Sonic movie going, and Ben ends up basically saying, hey, you can help me out with this, given, like, you're into comics and all that, and gives their strategy going in, and I'm going to read this directly. Get Sega to become invested in the idea by hiring us to interview their creative game designers, executives, etc., and see if we could develop a storyline that would fulfill the third season and simultaneously give them creative ideas to develop new games. A win-win situation. Then, I called Sega back, but I was shocked when the exec lit into me, telling me, people pay us to develop Sonic products, we don't pay them, and she hung up on me. Obviously, Penders had related my strategy to them in a less than flattering way. Thanks for the knife, Ken. Which, holy shit.
Yeah, I don't blame him for being pissed.
He also goes on, quote, so I gave up. Later, I was informed by friendly fans that Penders had written in his message board, or some such place, that Ben quoting Penders, Ben Hurst doesn't know how movies are made in Hollywood. And then Ben puts in parentheses, hey Ken, read Adventures in Screenwriting by William Goldman and get some humility. And then he, continuing to quote, then he dropped hints that he would be the writer for a big Sonic feature film. That was 3 years ago, which, this was 2005, so it would be 2002, which, holy shit, Ben starting some flames with Ken.
It's clear that, like, SatAM was a big passion project, and something that we hadn't brought up with Ben is, after SatAM was cancelled, him and Pat Ali were put onto good old Sonic Underground, and from what I understand, he did not like that show at all, and it shows in the episodes he wrote. Like, they are some of the weakest of a show that's already not that great, and it's clear that he did not enjoy working on it.
Yeah, he goes into some detail in the forums as well. We're not going to go into specifics, because maybe we'll cover Sonic Underground another time, yay! But long story short, very cheaply written by Deke, trying to push, quote, like 2 episodes a week. Absolute hellscape. But yeah. One thing I also want to add, which I thought was pretty funny about just Ben continuing to slight Penders. Another message board post, quote, just for the record, Ken has often said, paraphrasing here, that Ben Hurst has, that, again, Ben quoting Penders, Ben Hurst says the torch has been passed to me for Sonic the Hedgehog, usually expressed in a way to make it appear that I passed the torch to him. Not true. I was just trying to be nice. What I had said was, since the comic was ongoing and the animated series was over, the torch had been passed, and in brackets from the people quoting it by default, to him. I was just trying to prevent a flurry of inquiries from fans pitting his opinion against mine on how the Sonic universe should be sculpted after SatAM ended. The way he expressed it in the past seems to convey the impression that he has my approval of his work. He doesn't. I've not read a single comic. Wow!
Yeah.
I mean, like, that goes into what we were talking about in the previous episode, was that it genuinely feels like, if we didn't mention in previous episodes, still something I feel, is that it genuinely feels like, now that we're at the point where the comic is still going and SatAM is over, it does feel like it is continuing these characters and their stories, even if it's in a totally different plot line, though in some cases a very overlapping plot line. And so, I thought that's been interesting to see as we're going back and forth between comics and cartoons.
Anything else you want to bring up? I did want to mention some of the fan projects relating to SatAM.
You can't just ask anything else you want to bring up and then just go into your own topic.
Sorry.
I don't mind. I don't mind it. I don't have anything else to say other than one odds and ends thing I couldn't really figure out where to add is, it just seems like they just continue to be inconsistent with Robotnik's, mechs, I guess, because at one point he has, a hovercraft that he's able to VR transplant his face onto, and it's terrifying.
It's
basically,
JJ the jet plane shit.
Yes, JJ that plane, or Disney's planes years earlier, but with Robotnik's face.
It looks awful.
And then, he has, his own, vehicles in which he can shoot goo at Sonic, and he has, backup SWAT bots that are in their own jets as well. And then we have the room for one jet at the very end of the show. It's just weird to me how, like, I don't know, kids' cartoon, but, like, how it just, what Robotnik's tech was just constantly shifting every time. The floating island looks terrifying because I described it as, like, quote, artist renderings of hell with how the architecture looked. Apparently, it was they go back to the year 3224 because this, as Beth mentioned, this is like way in the future, and meaning the show was probably around 3234. And also at one point when they're making their way through the floating island to get the time stones, there's like an Escher painting ass location, and I joked, it's like, oh no, they entered Yami's mind. But that's basically all I have about it, so you can wrap up the episode with what you have to say.
Yeah, I just want to bring up...
Oh yeah, Sally has her vest. Like, she finally got her vest, as we alluded to way back in the first SatAM checkpoint. She finally has her vest. Way too late. Also, Rotor's voice actor is different. Like, we talked about how their design is different, but their voice actor is also different, and...
Yeah.
Go on.
I just want to bring up, like, a few, like, Sonic SatAM fan projects going on. Like, I'm sure if you're familiar with, like, I'm sure if you're familiar with the show, you probably have heard at least one of these. First one being Sonic the Hedgehog Season 3, or
Season, partner. You've been so disappointed about Bunny not being in here. You're just slowly transforming into the robot herself.
Yeah, C3On, which is basically a fan project to try and adapt the plans that Michael Bendis.
Yeah, we're going to Ultimate Sonic.
C3On planned to adapt the plans that Ben Hurst had for Season 3 into an animated as well as a comic project. There's the Sonic SatAM RPG Maker fan game that is currently on its 4th episode that just dropped during this year's Sonic Games for Games Expo, and the complete history of Sonic SatAM, basically a book that's going to be detailing all the history of this show in probably better detail than we can. The guy behind it seems to be a mega fan of this franchise, and he's found some interesting information recently about this and Adventures' history recently, as well as like a canceled Sonic interstitial thing focused on like Sonic's cousins who are in space, and they run like it's this weird thing. Like, it had even less to do with Sonic than they even underground, like in the sense, like, to the extent that like his only appearances in one episode is like a guest starring role.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's fucking wild. Some of the stuff that this guy's managed to find. I'm really looking forward to seeing their book whenever it comes out.
Yeah, that does sound really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I also had one more thing I wanted to add about like the Sonic fan project that you had to impose. The Sonic the Hedgehog Rejuiced and reanimation project that came out recently, reanimating the episode with Sonic where he races the robots. I have not seen it yet, but it like, just going off the thumbnail, looks pretty cool. I definitely recommend checking it. I'm sure it's really cool to check out.
Yeah, more power to them, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that, like, even if I'm not really into the show, I find like just the amount of like love from the fandom, even to this day, long after the show's ended, like, really cool to see. And I'm glad that like there's some efforts to try and give some sort of closure to this show, since God knows Sega or I guess now Wild Brain will ever give it at this point.
It'll change in the middle of us recording and the episode coming out. Don't worry about it. Like, we made references to the Barbie movie, and that's not even in episode 2, and that's not even gonna come up until like next week for us. And so it's like, wow, that's just the very dating our recording move right there. But yeah, that'll do it. Sorry if you're disappointed in us not liking the show. We didn't grow up with it, and so, we're just a bit more harsh on that. But, more power to you if you liked it. Tune in next episode where, once again, we move into Endgame, and also Vespa moves into bedtime because they sound on death's door. Let's do it to it, Penderheads.
Got it, cheers.
Two nerds recap Sonic the Hedgehog. This show was a big crap mediocre. Sonic the Hedgehog. Cammy, she's made of alien goo. Vespa, they're in a rambling mood. Sonic, he's a character we like. Look out for our hot takes. Title pendering. Don't doubt we'll make mistakes. Title pendering. Cammy, she can be quite rude. Vespa, they're as smart as two. Sonic, he's a character we both like. He's a character we both like. He's a character we both like.